Hello everyone and welcome to SwitchUp. In today's video we're going to look at the scores for the games that we reviewed last month on the channel, that month being April of course. We reviewed 8 games in total last month, so we'll go obviously from the game that got the lowest score up until the game that got the highest.
Do check out our website switchup.gg. If you want to save yourself a bit of money, you can get SwitchUp tokens every time you buy games and use them whenever you want, and you don't lose your gold coins that you'd normally get. Alright, what are the best games that we reviewed last month? Well, let's find out.
So coming in 8th place then we had Sherlock Holmes The Awakened. Now this game received obviously the lowest score as I've said, but it's actually a much better game than that would suggest, and it just had some issues that unfortunately dragged the score down. Now this is an adventure game from Frogwares, very similar to any other one of their games if you've played one before. And I believe this game first came out in 2008, and this is a remake of that particular game. So you play as Sherlock Holmes of course, and Watson, as you go on a mystery that ends up being linked to a cult that could have something to do with the legendary god Cthulhu. Now what I enjoyed most about this game actually was the story. You know, in terms of gameplay, you'll be going along to crime scenes, you'll be looking for clues, you'll be trying to piece together deductions of what may have happened. But the story was very well handled. The voice acting for the two main characters, obviously Holmes and Watson, was very good. Their camaraderie works very well, and I enjoyed the way that they interpreted Holmes. It's quite early, this is set quite early in his career, and he's almost, by the end of the game, he's almost like a broken man, because everything he believed about logic and reason being the way that you can solve anything is put to the test. And you see quite a few vulnerable moments with him that I thought, you know, was quite an interesting take on a character I don't know a huge amount about, but isn't necessarily the way that he's portrayed in popular media, outside obviously of the original Arthur Conan Doyle source material. Usually you see this quite brash and arrogant man that is always right, and it was quite interesting to see this other take.
Yeah, I did think that looked really interesting. What were the issues with the game?
I mean, mainly it comes down to performance. Controls are a bit fiddly, but you know, they're fine. Performance was quite iffy, and the price, I mean, it's 30, I think it's either 35 or 39 pound, I can't remember now, but it is a remake, so you know, credit where it's due. It just, it's very expensive, you know, and it's difficult sometimes because you want to applaud the efforts that have gone into something, but you do have to highlight obviously what's wrong with it. I think if you find this on sale, or you can overlook certain issues that I can't in a review but I can as a gamer, then you'd have a lot of fun with this one. With that said, it got a SwitchUp score of 69%.
Alright, then we've got Lost Epic, which Asdin reviewed for us on the channel, and is one of many Metroidvanias that have come out in the last, well, month or so. Now this had almost like what's it called, Muramasa style. Almost like a Muramasa art style, and that I always say this, that inverse kinematic animation, which some people like, it looks a bit janky. I didn't really like it. But he said the real issue with this one, and it wasn't a bad game, he enjoyed it overall, fun Metroidvania, pretty standard in most of its mechanics. It was the mapping, so that the way that the map is designed in a Metroidvania is so important. You know, it needs to keep you going back to those old areas to unlock certain things. It needs to be structured in a way that's still fun to revisit, and also you need to be able to navigate easily. I think some of those things didn't quite sit right for him. And then they threw in like the world's most ridiculous skill tree. It's like pages and pages of the thing, and it just made it too much. You know, sometimes less is more. And this is a case where they threw the kitchen sink at it, and it didn't pay off in that regard. Now, if you can drag your way through all of that, there is a good Metroidvania. But I think in a world where there's so many very good Metroidvanias, it didn't quite hit that perfect mark, you know?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, with all that said, this one got a score of 73%. So next then we had another game actually reviewed for us by Asdin, and that was Batora Lost Haven.
Yeah, Batora Lost Haven is a top-down adventure RPG in a traditional style. In fact, it reminded me when I saw it a little bit of the new Bayonetta game, but that's actually very different, you know, that doesn't play like this at all. This is a fast-paced, it actually has twin-stick controls, action game, and it's a very curated one as well, which I think Asdin appreciated. You know, in a world of roguelites, he liked the fact that this was a very curated, designed experience with a clear leveling system. It looks good on Switch, I think it's fair to say. This is a nice looking game, and it also includes quite a lot of puzzles that are reasonably cleverly designed. It's not just your standard flick a switch here and go through the door. So overall I think he enjoyed it, and he gave it a score of 78%. Then we've got Teslagrad 2, and they also released, I believe, the HD remaster of the first game, and I hadn't played that, I have to say, but I had heard about it. This one is, again, another Metroidvania, but these terms are getting a little bit grey now. Do you know what I mean? They're getting a bit grey because this is actually so linear in its design. It's very much, you're never lost. It guides you through to new areas. There's never that where do I go next moment. And it's also quite short. It doesn't take you, 4 or 5 hours to finish the whole game. But then there's quite a bit of content to go back for. I have to say, I didn't like the fact that after the credits, it doesn't spit you back out into the world. You have to reload your last save and then like leave the tower that you're in. I thought that was a bit lame. I think they might actually be patching that out. I spoke to the developer. But the overall game, and it just looks stunning. It has that Norse mythology feel to it, with a few artistic interpretations, I guess. And it also has an art style which I think some people will love or hate. Like the main character's animations are designed to be slower. But the problem is, because it had a few performance stutters, you never knew whether it was by design or that stutter, you know? Still, a really pleasant experience and at a reasonable price as well. This one scored 79%.
Lovely. Right, so into 4th place now, another one of your reviews, Mark. This was Wildfrost, which I know you've spoken to me about quite a bit in terms of just how addictive you find it.
Yeah, Wildfrost is a beautiful, flawed game in my opinion. It looks incredible. That artist just did such a bang-up job on it. And it is fun. It has a few interesting mechanics. It's a card-based deck builder where you go on runs. It is a roguelite. But essentially you get to choose one of 3 factions at the start of your run, and each faction has a very specific way of handling combat, I guess. One of them is all about poisoning. One of them, the gnomes, they're very powerful, and you have the ability to essentially scrap a few cards. So if you get hit, it will create scrap, and when you scrap the scrap, you can then use that to buff your other cards. So each of them are well designed. There are a few anomalies. There are a few cards that just, the balancing's way off. They're way too powerful, or they're too weak. And that's a problem because there's a feeling of RNG. There's that real random, these are the 3 characters cards, the leader cards that I can pick at the start. And by the way, if your leader dies, the run is over, which there were just certain fights that you knew as soon as you landed in the combat that it was over. You knew that it was finished. And for me, that's an issue. Having said that, they do know that. There's already extensive Q&As on Reddit where they're like, what are your main issues? And everyone's just firing them off, and they're like, all right, we'll fix them.
Wouldn't it be interesting if you could visit like an alternative dimension where these games weren't roguelites? Do you know what I mean? Where you could have the same game, it just removed that element to it. I'm not talking about procedural generation necessarily, it depends on the game of course, but just that idea of, as you said, leader dies, game over. I just made it a bit more traditional in terms of how you carried on, and just to see which one would be the better experience, you know? Yeah,
I think of all the games that are roguelites, it suits deck builders almost to the ground. When it's like an RPG roguelite, something like Hades, I would love a non-roguelite version of it. Here it's designed to be like loops, but I also want to see what that looks like. I also want to see if actually the first loop is the first level, and then the second loop is something completely different. You just keep moving through this thing, and there's a curated story. And in fairness, that is what Hades did well. It actually told something worth listening to. But yeah, I like that. Interesting. This one scored a SwitchUp score of 82%.
Okay, let's move into the top 3 now, and in 3rd place then we had Advance Wars 1 and 2 Reboot Camp. Now these games first came out in the early 2000s on the Game Boy Advance, and this is a remake which bundles both of those games together. Now these are strategy games, of course, turn-based strategy games where you will be put on a map. You'll have your troops, of course, and you'll either need to capture the enemy base or destroy all units. There are a couple of missions where it's slightly different in terms of objectives, but that's, the basic idea. Now, what I've always loved about this series, going way back to the originals back on the Game Boy Advance, was just how simplistic they made the premise whilst still being very deep in terms of how the combat pans out and how sometimes you'll need to switch your tactics mid-mission because what you thought you could do isn't working. And I really enjoyed that simplicity, but with a nice deep edge to it once you got into it.
Yeah, the more strategy games we get, the better in my opinion. All right, that one got a SwitchUp score of 84%. Then we have a review that just came out on the channel. Remember, all of these reviews will be linked in the description. It's Trinity Trigger. Now this is an ARPG, which doesn't have any of the turn-based combat, but has the traditional RPG elements, and it sees you play as a couple of essentially your godly weapons that are in place of the gods to fight for them. Now the storylines It sounds ludicrous, it's classically RPG, but it is easy to follow, I have to say. I did always understand what I was doing, but I loved how no nonsense it was. I was never sat for like 25 minutes watching a cutscene, which for me is just absolutely glorious when you're reviewing an RPG. It does kind of almost shoehorn the player down a path, and again, I quite liked it. You know, I moved quite quickly from the snow world to the desert world, and it's got dungeons that you go into that they're not the most complex things, but they're good enough. There are spikes to avoid. I loved that it has that drop-in, drop-out co-op. For me now, it's literally easier in my life, the way I've got my setup. You know, my kids can come in, grab a controller and join in without winding me up, and we can all play together for a bit. So yeah, I really appreciated that aspect of it, actually. Artistically, I think you could argue this design potentially looks a bit cheap, but actually, again, a game that's running at 60 FPS, silky smooth on the Switch without ever dropping, lots of nice quality of life features, things like not having to hold a run button, it's just after 3 seconds it will move into a sprint. Just things that make the whole experience feel a little bit more streamlined. I appreciated them, and I thought it was a really good game, and I gave it 85%.
And that takes us on to first place for the month then, and this went to the Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster bundle. Now this bundles together the first 6 games of this well-loved series, which I believe, off the top of my head, 3 were on either the NES or the Famicom, depending on whether they came out in the West, and obviously you had 4, 5 and 6, which were on, again, Super Nintendo or Super Famicom.
Yeah, these are obviously the original games, but the earlier 2 or 3, I think, have had larger improvements to their overall visual style that takes them up to look a little bit more like the SNES versions of the games, is that correct?
Yeah, in some respects, I would even say it's gone past the Super Nintendo. It's almost on like a PlayStation style of aesthetic for a top-down pixelated game. You know, it almost hits 32-bit.
There was a bit of a weird situation with the physical of this one. I believe the American version was difficult to come by. There's like a limited quantity, something like that. I will absolutely plug the Play Asia version because you can get a little bit of a discount using code SwitchUp23, which is down in the description there. But yeah, there was a strange situation. I don't know why they would do that.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure. I mean, certain companies, Square Enix, Capcom being another one, seem very reluctant to release their games physically in the West for the Switch. This one, as you said, there was a limited run, if you like, of it on Square Enix's website, their official website in North America. I don't think that was even over here in Europe at all, and as you say, there is that Asian version that does have English on the cartridge, but I think even that's quite sought after. So yeah, it's disappointing. I don't know why they do that, especially when you consider the digital price, which was one of the reasons that this did dip down in terms of the score that we'll show you in a moment.
Now, if you're only after one of them, you can actually buy these individually, so if you want to just get Final Fantasy VI, which I've heard a lot of people did, you can pick that up for about 15 quid, something like that. Now, overall, we thought it was a really impressive remaster. In fact, it's much more impressive than first meets the eye, I guess you could say. There's a lot more work that's gone into these, and they sound fantastic. They play well. There is a little bit of stutter sometimes when you're moving across the world map and things. I didn't notice that the first time when we looked at it, I've got to be honest. But it is there, but they are patching that out.
Yeah, that stutter, as far as I can see, occurs when you walk at diagonals, because obviously the original games didn't have diagonal movement. It was only 4-way movement, and I think where they've added it to be 8-way, there is just that slight stutter as you move across.
Which is exactly why I didn't experience it. I don't know if I even walked diagonally. I think my brain was like, you can go left, you can go up, you can go left, you can go up. Man, diagonals, that's blown my mind. So overall, we gave that one a SwitchUp score of 88%.
So there you have it. There is a month's worth of Nintendo Switch reviews on SwitchUp. Please do let us know if you picked up any of these games. Would you agree with our scores? Let us know in the comment section below. Any games that we haven't reviewed, obviously there are only so many that we can. Please do tell us about them if you've played them. What score would you have given them? It's nice for us to see, but it's nice for other people to get an idea of what else is out there.
Yeah, absolutely. As I said at the start, do use SwitchUp GG if you want to support us and save a little bit more money on your eShop credit and games by getting your SwitchUp tokens.
Lovely job. There's also that Play Asia link down there that Mark mentioned earlier if you are looking to pick anything up in terms of imports, and of course that does include that Final Fantasy bundle. A big thank you to our patrons and our channel members, of course, for your continued support, and to each and every one of you for watching our videos. Take care, and until next time, happy gaming.